So if we were to restart a private hard money lending company today with all of the knowledge that we have, and the goal is for me and Jason only, no other staff at this point in time, to grow to $10 million outstanding, this is exactly what we would do.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the show. If you haven't done so already, we're about to mention the software here in a second during the story, but check out Lender Software, LENDR software.com, the Mastermind's #1 loan management system. Okay. All right, let's frame this a little bit. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because a lot of people are in a similar spot. People who watch the podcast have just joined the Mastermind group, stuff like that, and want to hit that $10 million portfolio. Now, we're going to be talking about this assuming that we have all the knowledge that we have today. We've been doing this for 18, 19 years. We've grown a company, to $50 million outstanding. We have a good team. We've consulted, and coached other lenders on doing the same. So we have a lot of knowledge here, right? But still, if we were to take all of that knowledge, start from zero, say we move to a new market, right? Where we didn't know anybody, or, even if we did, like either way. But all right. So we're going to break this up between front end and back end, just the way we run our company and have. Jason has always run the origination, underwriting, all of that stuff that happens prior to closing. And I've always run the back end. So investor capital, loan servicing, defaults, accounting, all of that stuff there. But assuming we have no team, we're making every phone call, we're doing every keystroke.
Yep. So a few things, a few kind of benchmarks to note. And I know a lot of listeners aren't necessarily going to want to hear this, but typically what we found is to grow a responsible portfolio, it takes about 3 years to have $10 million outstanding in loans. Now, keep in mind, that's outstanding, right? To a point where you can do a deal, and you don't have any loans paying off. It takes time for that to happen, right? But then you get to a point that you're doing deals, and then deals are paying off. You're doing more deals are paying off. But when we started, we doubled our volume year after year after year. Like we went from 1.5 or 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32, stuff like that. I just jotted down just having the knowledge base that we have today, maybe no contacts or anything else. But if we were just starting from scratch, also the loan amounts are a little bit higher than they were back in the day. So let's just call it 3 mil year 1, 6 mil year 2, 10, 12 mil year 3. That's what we're going to be basing everything off of that. And I know those don't sound like sexy topics because nobody wants to, hey man, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take 3 years. This isn't a get rich quick scheme, right? If you have, some money to put into a business, you probably can have a business that you can make more money quickly, flipping houses, wholesale and stuff like that. But this is a good long-term business model that if you do it the right way, it's going to be safe, it's going to be secure, and it's going to be lucrative, and it can be a legacy, and it keeps going without a lot of heavy lifting after you build it out. So those are a little bit of benchmarks. And like Chris said, we're going to talk about front end stuff and some back end stuff. We'll start about some front end stuff. When I say front end stuff, like borrowers, deals, opportunities, you need those. That's got to be your focus every day, especially at the beginning of the game. So what I would do personally, if we started from scratch, is I would stay up all night for 7 full days straight. I would stay up literally 7 days straight, and I would build out all of our digital assets, all of our social media profiles. I would build out all of our websites. I would build out everything so we have everything set up. Now, keep in mind, you're less worried about conversion on these tools. You're more concerned about credibility on these tools. And your borrowers are going to Google you. Your borrowers are going to look on social media. Better believe your capital investors are going to do the same thing. So you better have an Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Business, every platform, YouTube channel. You got to have all platforms to do so. So I would start creating all those platforms, and I'd also starting to create content for all those platforms. And again, I would be doing this in 1 week, all of this stuff. I'd have 3-4 page page website that would be very, very simple, geared towards borrowers, geared towards brokers, geared towards testimonials and case studies and credibility, because we know those are the most important things to put on your website. And then some sort of call to action: apply for a loan, contact us. Probably more importantly, book an appointment just to get on the phone and start having reps and talk. So like a lot of stuff that you can do from your house or from your from behind the scenes, just to get a lot of this stuff up and running. And I would start creating and building out my YouTube page and my Instagram page on content related to helping real estate investors and educating them about Hard Money Lender. Who we are, what the mission statement is, who we're here to help, why our company is better than our competitors. We're local, we're easy to work with, we're quick. It's a very simple process, right? So that would probably only take me a week because I'd geek out on it and I'd have everything built up, ready to go to like the next step and, get on the streets running.
All right, let's switch over to the other side of things. Let's talk about capital real quick. So, all right. In all fairness, like if we were to restart this at this age, I'm about to turn 47. We started HMB when we were 28 and we had way fewer resources. Let's not assume that it's restarting now. We have all of our current capital investors because that would kind of be cheating. But we do have more general resources in terms of capital, not even including our own funds. Let's say that we're not putting our own funds into deals yet, because that also would be shortcutting the whole process a bit. But we have more going on in our first degree network than we did back then, meaning the people that we know personally, friends, family, business associates that we've done business with over the years, that we could reach out to get some capital lined up. Not all the capital that we would need, not right away, not with just a handful of phone calls. It'll be some work. And then I would also start to hit that second degree. So the people I know, the people that they know, and the people who've done training and consulting and stuff with us are familiar with this, but I'm sure a lot of people aren't. And I would start working that spreadsheet and getting a whole list of prospects set up of, okay, I've been referred to this person. I'm going to try and get a meeting, whatever I can get. A phone call, a Zoom, in-person meeting is best, and go through our pitch deck that we put together of like, here's our game plan. We're going to be lending in DC, Maryland, Virginia, investment residential, small balance commercial. Here's what we're competent in underwriting. Loan amounts from 200K to 2 mil, lay it all out in the pitch deck and start having some meetings and let people know that we're going to be growing. We can't deploy for them quite yet, but it's coming soon, right? It's coming soon. We're starting this lending company. It's going to be good. Here's what it's going to look like. And then I would put all of these contacts that I'm accumulating into an email list, separate from the one that Jason is creating for all potential borrowers and referral sources. This one is only for capital investors and potential investors, right? And I would start dripping out to that list an email once a week, pointing to little wins that are happening at our company. We just closed this deal. This one just paid off. Here's the before and after. Here's Chris and Jason speaking at a meetup group. Whatever we have going on that week, right? That we could talk about, point as a little win, and start getting that ball rolling. Another thing that I would do right away, and again, we know this from experience, is that pretty much every lender, ourselves included, wait too long to get proper loan management, loan servicing software. Most people are starting on spreadsheets and QuickBooks, and that's because they don't want to cough up money, even though the ROI on getting a proper system is gonna be great. It's gonna pay you back so quickly. It makes sense to do it day one. If we were restarting with the resources that are out there today, I would propose to Jason that day one we get lender software. Because as a lot of people know, our team is really ingrained in TMO, and TMO works fine. We have a good system going on. Our team rolls with it. But frankly, lenders making a better product. And so if we were to start from scratch and there weren't all this redoing of systems and processes and retraining and all that stuff, we would start on lender day one. We would cough up the money to do that and begin our company with a proper software.
Yeah, I mean, we started with a price point stuff and worked our way up as we grew back in the day. And I mean, we were cutting checks manually. We didn't have any ACH. We didn't really have any origination model. We didn't have a lot of that stuff that, there's a lot more suitable options for to make life easier. Now, the benefit of doing manual stuff is, hey, we could hand deliver checks to borrowers when we did draws. We could hand deliver checks to investors when we at their house for investor relations. That was part of the game. So that's not a bad look. And you can still kind of do that now if you still choose. So anyways, so going back to the front end stuff, took me 7 days, did all the social profiles, did all the website stuff, got some basic documents together, maybe some online loan applications and things like that. The next step I would do is I would research my plan of attack to be on the road pretty much until further notice to go get in front of people, meetup groups, brokers, realtors, other hard money lenders, whatever I had to do, auctions, anywhere that real estate investors were, I would do that. And I would also have my CRM set up. And inside that CRM, I'd have it very, very simple where I'd have an option on my phone that I could, input name, phone number, email, and they would get put on a nurture sequence or an autoresponder sequence over and over and over and over. I could do that for my phone. I could do that for my computer. Maybe even I'd get one of those digital business cards where people could book an appointment with me and things like that, that some of our team members have. But part of the process is I'd go to Vistaprint and I'd order 10,000 business cards and I would start hitting the streets. I'd go to meetup groups 2 or 3 nights a week. During the days, I would do broker visits, realtors, auctions, other hard money lenders, and I would, get on the phone, start calling, get in meetings with the goal of creating relationships, explaining to them what we do, and getting their contact information, and then putting them into our database. So let's say like this was the end of week 1, and I went to 2 or 3 meetup groups. I went to 2 realtor offices and networked and met with them. Went to called on a few broker offices. In the first week, I could definitely call every hard money lender locally in the markets that I was in and say, "Hey, hey Jason, hey, just to let you know, I'm lending private money. I definitely don't want to compete with you. That's not my goal, but I want to to you, introduce myself to you just to learn a little bit about the products that you offer and your target audience. I think I can refer you deals, blah blah blah. Then you can go over the deals that you do, and I would, by the end of the week, there's no reason why I wouldn't be able to collect, a few hundred names, few hundred contact records, and they would get put into my email database and at the end of that week or beginning of the next week, my first email broadcast would go out. And I would do that manually, or Chris would do that manually. And we'd send out an email and, just in essence, an educational email with a small call to action at the bottom about who we were, what's going on, maybe a document, a meetup group that I was at. Maybe I put some video or some image, some images of looking at a property, whatever it was. The goal is to get reps and to get on the phone. One mistake that I think a lot of new lenders have is they want to communicate with people the easy way via text, email, things like that at the very beginning. And you should never really do it like that because you want to be able to script them on the numbers that you want to sell them and you need your script to sell them. You can't really do that unless you're on the phone with them. But it's getting reps and talking to people. And you've probably heard us talk about that you can usually do sales calls within 2 to 5 minutes. At the beginning, I think your sales call should be a little bit longer, and the reason why is you gotta fumble through things. You gotta ask questions, a lot of questions. You gotta learn what other people want out of your product and things like that. You just need to talk to people to see. And that would be kind of the start of a beautiful thing. And if I do that on a regular basis, within the end of, a month or 2, I'd have thousands of people in our email database, and that would be our base, our borrower base to reach out to on a regular basis to try to get leads, try to get referrals over and over and over and over and over.
All right, I also want to touch on legal because that's something that comes into play in day one. So knowing what we know now and having been through different kinds of firms, practice areas. So one, obviously they have to practice the attorneys, the law firm in the states where you're going to lend. Now that's a little tricky where we are in general on the East Coast because states are very close together. There's a good chance you're going to be doing business in multiple of them, like DC, Maryland, Virginia. There you go, 3 different states right there that they would have to practice in. I would most likely select some kind of mid-sized firm that practices in those 3 and also can handle the practice areas that we need. So day one, we're going to need loan docs. Like, are they a real estate and finance and business focused kind of law firm? Do they have someone who really specializes in commercial real estate loan documents? Because these documents are commercial, even if they're investment residential. Someone who focuses on that, specializes in that, and also title review and negotiation as part of one person's job. And then also, what do they have in terms of attorneys who are practicing in foreclosure, judgments, bankruptcy, other kinds of litigation? Do they have all of that under one roof? Because if they do, it's going to make life a lot easier having that one relationship. If you can give them a good amount of business, you're going to get great service, right? If you're giving them, several loan document sets every month, pretty soon, not day one, but like, later on this year, maybe into next year, the defaults are going to start rolling around. So they'll get default letters and be able to start foreclosure files, and then everything will happen from there over time. But hopefully you can find one firm with a few different attorneys, not a solo practitioner, not also a huge, like, multinational law firm, mid-sized firm that can handle the states where you're lending and also the practice areas that you need.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy conversation to have because this is what we did in the past. It's very relatable to exactly how we set it up.
Yeah, but I mean,
Uh,
we fumbled through it so bad back
I
then.
agree.
Made so many
But
mistakes,
this is
figured it out, but
yeah, but this is what worked and what didn't work. So okay.
yeah.
So the next step is, you know, that process I just said on a weekly basis of outbound, inbound, talking to as many people as possible, like, that doesn't stop. Like, we're gonna continue to do that because we need lead flow to come in. So now the phone's ringing, I'm making appointments, I'm talking to borrowers, um, they have a deal that works. If I'm using a software or I'm using a Google Sheet, I'm gonna send them out a term sheet. Based on the numbers. Let's say they commit to proceed, they sign our term sheet, they, uh pay the $400 that we typically charge to do, an in-house inspection. Maybe we do a third-party evaluation if we choose to. And then, my hat went from, like, business owner was the first thing to marketing and business development to loan originator. Like, these are all things that I just went through hats that I wore. Now I'm gonna get into processing and underwriting, right? The borrower committed, the next step, I'm gonna go out to that property. They've already paid the $400. They've already committed to go. I'm gonna go out to that property. I'm gonna meet the borrower. I'm gonna do a walkthrough. I'm gonna take some pictures and some videos, maybe meet an inspector out there, maybe not, and create a relationship with the borrower. See what we're lending on. Have everything. Make sure they understand the expectations of how the construction draws work and when the closing date is and everything. What their cash to close is. All important things that we need to make sure that they know, and be very very hands on, because going out to a property and spending quality time with a borrower is not just for underwriting purposes, it's also for sales opportunities for the future, right? And I'm going to do every construction draw at the beginning. They have one loan outstanding or a few loans outstanding. I'm doing every construction draw. I'm going to every property. I need to learn. I need to meet these people. I need to create relationships until I have a vendor helping with some of this stuff down the road. And we probably will have some vendors to do some of these things. I'm not saying employees because, Chris and I can handle all of this up to a 10 million, but we will have some vendors to help us with some of these things as needed. But I'm going to be handling all of that, um, myself and processing the loan, putting everything together. Let's say we have everything. I'm coordinating with the title company. I'm coordinating with the insurance company. Um, we're borrower's ready to go. And, we send everything over to the attorney's office. Chris indicated, we'll set up with a good attorney that can do loan doc prep and title review. So we'll send that over. We'll coordinate with them and the title company. We'll get the deal closed. And then after the deal's closed, Chris would hop in, put in our loan servicing software. He'd be, you know, responsible for running some of that and then matching up whatever capital that he raised side by side. So like we're moving side by side. I'm finding deals, he's finding capital. I'm finding deals, he's finding capital. You're going to hit that seesaw approach. It always happens where all of a sudden, I find $1 million worth of deals and Chris is like, shit, I only got $500,000 for the capital. Okay, let's figure out what we got to do to do that. Or get to a point where like, hey, I found this investor and this guy wants to deploy 2 million bucks. And it's like, shit, we only got $500,000 worth of loans. Okay, let's figure out what we got to do. And we're going to be hand in
That'll
hand,
happen.
working side by side and, continuing to do this and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat.
I mean, this is kind of motivating. Just having this conversation is like, oh man, like startup time. Like there's a lot of pain that comes with starting up any kind of company, but you know, hopefully these experiences that we've had and that other people in the mastermind have had shortcut a lot of it for you. Like that's a lot of stuff crammed into 20 minutes. Anything else to add there? Because that was my list for startup.
No, I mean, I know it was definitely kind of like day one or the first few months top heavy. But like that is the process. Like 90% of the day should be business building, finding deals, finding opportunities, not of my day, 90% of Chris's day. Hey, raising capital, working with capital investors, doing investor relations. That's 90% of the day. And then the 10% is the paperwork of putting things together, servicing loans, collecting payments, processing loans,
Sure.
things like that. And a lot of people get stuck in the weeds of spending a lot of time on some of that stuff, and that's important, right? Like, it has to be done that way, but it's a widget and it's a transaction, and create systems and processes around it, and in the future, you can, essence, hire behind it, and, you certainly should, and even at a $10 million portfolio, there is enough revenue to come in that if you want to, you could hire behind it, and we know lenders that right from the beginning, they hire because they're in a position where they can. We weren't really in a position where we could, and, we're learning everything on the fly, and we're doing everything from scratch, or we were doing everything from scratch, so we were learning from it, and I think as an operator business, I think it's important to understand a lot of the different roles inside the business, and we certainly do. We've done them all, and, it's
Yeah.
makes life way easier to know what you can outsource, what you can't outsource, because, like, in our opinion, there's a few things that, like, we can't outsource. Like, I'm always gonna be underwriting, Chris is always gonna be doing investor relations. We overlap, mostly Chris, but I have some involvement on the default stuff, and we also enjoy doing some of the marketing stuff and the podcasting and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and we do that together.
All right, everybody. I hope that gives a big shortcut on your road from zero to a $10 million portfolio. If you've been following the podcast for a while, first of all, we really appreciate it. Second, if you've ever considered coming to one of our events, our mastermind meetings, go check out hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, talk to our team. We hope to work with you in person. See you next time on the pod.
Thank you for joining us on this Private Lenders Podcast episode. Please note that opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, financial, and accounting professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we would appreciate it if you could spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 community for all private and hard money lenders.